I want to thank Ushi Parnas again for moderating. You'll see when I'm done my little part, he's going to jump in and he's going to take the questions, etc. Menachem Berfeld is talking. You have the ability to talk. How do you like that? You must be a co-host, but okay. Okay, let me get started. Okay, in this week's Parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu warns the Klal Yisrael, you're going to go into Eretz Yisrael, and it's going to be wonderful. It's a land that's replete with everything man needs, and it's a beautiful land. The Kesev V'Zav Yerbelecha, you're going to have tremendous abundance. Your crops are going to grow. Your sheep, your cows, you're going to find yourself in a very, very wondrous situation, great wealth, great abundance. And Moshe Rabbeinu warns the following. He says, V'zacharta, you should remember, ki hu anosein l'cha koach lasos chayil, meaning one of the great dangers that we human beings fall into on a regular basis is we say the words, kochi ve'otzim yadi asali esachayil hazeh, my strength, my vigor, it's my wisdom, my acumen that brought me this great success. And warns Moshe Rabbeinu v'zacharta, you should remember, ki Hashem elokecha hu anosein l'cha koach lasos chayil, Hashem your God, He is the one who gave you the strength, He gave you the capacity, He gave you the ability. And that's a simple reading of the pasuk, and it's a very important concept to be aware of. It's not my strength, not my wisdom, it's Hashem's world. Okay. The problem is that if you read Onkelos on that pasuk, Onkelos says something very, very perplexing. He says, Hu av yachal eitza lemiknei nichsen. What does it mean that Hashem gives you koach lasos chayil? It means that Hashem put the idea in your mind to buy that particular merchandise. And if you think about that Onkelos, that's rather limiting. Meaning Hashem does everything. Hashem created the world, runs the world. And yet Onkelos is saying, don't be arrogant and don't say it's kochi v'otzim yodi, don't say it's the might of my hand, because Hashem gave you the wisdom to buy that particular merchandise. Now that's true, but Hashem did a whole lot more than that as well. And if you'd like an illustration as to exactly what Hashem does, I'll share with you an interesting thought. We make a bracha on a regular basis, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Hashem, I recognize you are present. Elokeinu melech olam, God, King of the world. Hamotzi, you bring bread from the ground. Now here's the little question. It's not true. The farmer takes a seed, puts the seed in the ground, up grows the wheat, and the farmer cuts the wheat. He sells it to the silos. The silos store it, then they sell it to the wheat dealer. The wheat dealer sells it to the mill. The mill grinds it into flour. The flour is then sold to the bakery. The bakery then sends it over to the supermarket, and I go to the supermarket to buy my bread. So what does it mean, Hamotzi, Hashem, you are the one who takes bread out of the ground. I take my bread out of the supermarket. The bracha doesn't seem to make much sense. And if you'd like to understand what I believe the simple meaning of that bracha is that when Hashem created the world, Hashem orchestrates it, maintains it in the very same manner. Meaning to say everything that happens, everything that remains in existence is there because Hashem keeps it going. Market economies, the fact that there aren't labor disputes, the fact that there things are somehow, governments seem somehow to find ways and methods to continue existing. The fact that the farmer knows how to do what he does, everything that happens under the sun, Hashem is intimately involved with. The entire food chain, the entire complexity of it all, Hashem is involved in every step of it, keeping it. And when I say the words, Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, I'm acknowledging the fact not just that Hashem created the world, but that Hashem runs the world in every facet, everything under His direct dominion. Hashem is intimately involved in the running of everything. So let's review that Onkelos. Onkelos says, remember, Hashem gave you the wisdom, Hashem gave you the thought, put the thought in your head to buy that prakmatya, that type of merchandise. That is true, but that's a major understatement. There's a lot more that Hashem did, like creating the world, maintaining the world, orchestrating the world. And why is Onkelos so limiting the pasuk? Why is he saying that's the pshat in the pasuk? Okay. To answer this question, I'd like to share with you an interesting observation. Imagine you see a simple farmer out in Tennessee, and it's the end of the summer, and he's looking at his bumper crop, corn 6 feet tall as far as the eye can see, and he's amazingly proud, amazingly happy. And then he looks over at his neighbor's field, and his neighbor's field is barren, empty. And he says, oh, that fool boy, I told him, the rain comes late this year, the frost come early. You don't go planting wheat. Corn's the only thing that'll grow well. I told him, that dang fool, he don't listen to me. Silly boy. That farmer recognizes that he cannot control rain. He doesn't control pestilence. He doesn't control whether the seeds grow well and take or not. But the one area that the farmer can think is under his dominion is, I made the decision, corn or wheat, and my wisdom, my acumen, I'm the one who determined that. And I believe what Uncle is sharing with us is a fundamental concept. The people that Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking to were the Dordea. They were in Mitzrayim. They saw 10 Makkos. They saw Kriyas Yamsuf. They were at Har Sinai and they heard Hashem say the words, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. They reached a level of Nevuah where they literally saw, recognized Hashem on the level of Nevias, of total prophecy. And they lived with constant miracles. There was no way that that generation could take pride in, I built these mighty pens to keep my animals. I planted this field well. They were way, way too wise, way too spiritual, and there's no way they could have made such a mistake. How could they become arrogant? It was my decision. Listen, Hashem runs the world, but my decision to buy Microsoft, I decided to invest in Tesla. It was my wisdom. Uncles explains that was the one area where they could have made a mistake, and he defines a pasuk that way. Remember, Ki hu anosin l'chakoach la'asos chayil. Hashem is the one who put that thought in your mind. Even when you think that part's under your dominion, you control that, you're making a mistake. Not only does Hashem run the entire world, the food chain and everything else within that, but even the thoughts in your mind are greatly influenced by Hashem. And remember that it's not your wisdom, it's not your understanding. And I believe that this concept is fundamental to making sense out of much of what we believe in. And I'll explain to you what I mean. The Rambam says, Ani mamim b'emuna shalema, I accept with a total clarity of thought, Shaboris Barach, Bore Umani. He's the creator and one who runs the world. V'hu he alone, Asa Osev Yasa l'chol. He alone did, does, and will do all activities under the sun. Everything. Every event, everything that happens in the world, Hashem is intimately involved. Okay? Here's the problem. Many a time, you and I will say the words, it's Hashkacha, it's Hashem's intervention. It's Hashkacha Pratis, Hashem help me, Hashem save me. Here's the problem. The problem is we know that Hashem doesn't bring miracles. Hashem hides behind nature. If Hashem would reveal himself, we'd lose free will. And therefore Hashem hides behind that thick veil of nature. And Hashem almost never does an overt nes. A nes goloi is something that Hashem almost never engages in, certainly in our times. So here's the question. If I believe that Hashem orchestrates everything, if I believe that Hashem controls my destiny, every outcome, how could that be if Hashem's not going to bring miracles? How could that possibly happen? And I'd like to share with you that the vast, vast majority of Hashkacha Pratis, of Hashem's direct intervention, is within the realm of people's thoughts, influencing my thinking, influencing other people's thinking. And because again, Hashem hides behind that mask called Teva, called nature, and the vast majority of Hashem's intervention in this world is by placing thoughts into people's heads. People who act kindly to me, people who act cruelly, people who just happen to be there at the right moment, and people who just aren't. Various reasons, various thoughts, various situations. Hashem is orchestrating the world. Much of it, if not most of it, is via putting thoughts into man. And if you want to see a few examples of it, I'll show you one on a global, and then we'll deal with one on a personal, on a local level. Globally, every revolution in history began with a certain wind that blow, a certain zeitgeist, a certain change in sort of attitude, certain change in people's thought process. No one can explain it. It really is inexplicable, but somehow people began thinking differently. A scientific revolution, right? For centuries, man accepted there were certain things you couldn't ask, you couldn't understand. There was a black box. Suddenly, within the Renaissance, there was a change. Man became curious, and man began to study. And it was an entire revolution, but the main part of the revolution was in thinking. For some strange reason, everyone turned their thought process from accepting to now asking. You look at the American Revolution. In the history of mankind, it never happened. We're going to become our own independent nation. What influenced that desire? What created that zeitgeist, that wind that blow? Hashem orchestrates the world by putting thoughts into people's mind. And if you study any revolution, any major change, you'll see there's a certain winds that blow. There's a certain, hard to describe, hard to know why and where, but suddenly people are thinking differently. And when you spot that, say the words, that's my creator orchestrating the world. And I believe we're living through one of those today. In the course of history, I don't think it was ever this good. I don't think we ever had it this good in terms of material possessions, in terms of opportunity, in terms of freedom, in terms of health. Never in the course of history has it been this good. Western civilization for sure, the United States of America in particular, the amount of opulence, wealth, opportunity, freedom. You could do what you want, be what you want, anytime you want, and no one stops you. We live in a world with law and order, and there's a certain, it's incredible. And suddenly, for the strangest reason, the anti-fascists get a hold of the media, get a hold of a certain sense, and there's a wind that blows, and suddenly everyone defund the police, anarchism, we have to destroy the world, destroy civilization. What you're talking about is the most insane idea ever known to mankind. If you would like to know how foolish it is, just Google the following: crime in Chicago, shootings in New York City. Just Google it and see hour by hour the listings that come up. Defund the police. That's about as brilliant an idea. I don't have an analogy for it. It is so utterly ridiculous because what you're describing is anarchism. You're describing taking the greatest civilization that probably ever existed and pulling out the plug, just destroying it. And what you're watching is Hashem influencing the minds of man, doing something, causing people to do something which is overtly insane. Any thinking individual would say this is the height of folly, the height of stupidity. What are you thinking? What do you think is going to come of this? And you have to recognize that we may not know the why behind it. We may not know where Hashem's leading it. But when you see those winds that blow, when you see that, you say, that's my creator. That's Hashem running the world. You sit back and you watch knowing that Hashem is in charge. And on a global level, this idea that Hashem puts thoughts into people's minds is very, very important. But I think it's equally important on a local level. And I'll explain to you what I mean. What do you do when you have to make that really, really tough decision and you can't? The doctor says to you, I don't know what to do. If we operate, your mother might live, she might die. If we don't operate, she might live, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to tell you. And you consult another medical professional and you ask another and another, and they all say to you, I don't know what to tell you. If we operate, the operation may kill her, operation may save her, we don't know what to do. How do you call the shot? Now here's the problem. There is no way in the world I can make the right decision there. If I were a Novi, if I had Ruach HaKodesh, I could see what the end would be. But I don't. I'm a mortal man, flesh and blood, and I cannot possibly make the right decision in that case. And that's when you have to understand what the Chovos Vavos teaches us, and that is you cannot make the right decision. You're not supposed to make the right decision. You're supposed to make the best decision that you can make at the time. You're supposed to recognize that Hashem runs the world. Hashem wants us to use the world in the ways of the world. That means to say I'm supposed to ask, I'm supposed to be very, very vigilant. I'm supposed to get as much knowledge and much information. I have to be as proactive as I possibly can be. And once I reach that point, I say, I don't know. I make my best shot. I call the shot the best I can. Then I take my heavy load. I transfer to Hashem. I say, Hashem, you run the world. It's your world. But you see, there are many, many cases where you will not be able to make the right decision, but you're not supposed to make the right decision. You're supposed to make the best decision that you can because it's Hashem's world. And I'd like to share with you that this comes up in so many different situations. It comes up over and over and over. I had a fellow call me up. He spoke to me for a number of years about different childhoods. He called me up. He's engaged. Hashem. About a week later, I'm not sure. Maybe she's not my bashert. So I asked him, do you enjoy our company? Do you look forward to being? Are you attracted? Everything. I said, I think it sounds good. I think you should continue. Okay, he's engaged about a month. He calls me up, Rebbe, I don't know, I'm not sure. Maybe she's not my bashert. Do you enjoy her company? Do you like being with her? Do you find her attractive? Good. I think it sounds good. This went on and on from the wedding hall. An hour before the chuppah, he calls me up, maybe she's not my bashert. And I said to him, you're right. Maybe she's not. And you have to understand something. There's only one way you could possibly know if she's your bashert. And that's when you and your wife walk your grandchildren down the chuppah, then you'll know she was your bashert. But until that point, you can't know. How are you going to know what's going to be 20 years from now, 30 years, 40 years from now? You cannot possibly make the right decision. But that's not your decision to make. your decision to make is the best decision that you can, based on what you understand and based on what you recognize. That's the decision you make. You take your heavy load, you pass it over to Hashem, you say, Hashem, it's your world. You determine every outcome. My job is to use the world in the ways of the world. Your job is to run the world. End of the story. He got married many years later now, Baruch Hashem, happily married, happily, very nice, everything good. But that's the point. The point is you'll find many, many situations where you cannot make the right decision. But again, that's not your obligation. That's not your job. That's Hashem's job. Your job is to make the best decision. And I believe that this concept is fundamental for another area of life. And that concept is making peace with yourself. Many, many people that you will meet in life are not at peace. They're not at peace for various reasons, but they find themselves in tremendous unrest, either because of decisions that they made, choices that they came across, things that they were involved in. And what you'll find over and over is people are not at rest and not at peace. And one of the things that you have to fundamentally understand is that Hashem orchestrates the world, Hashem runs the world. We'll get involved a little bit later in some of the details of when people make decisions right or wrong, how they should deal with it. But this understanding that even in the thoughts of my mind, Hashem is very involved, very intimately involved, is one of the basics of our Emunah. In fact, probably the biggest part of Hashem's intervention is that. That's on a global sense. When you see zeitgeist, when you see world changes, it's on a local sense. When you're involved in situations, when you know that Hashem is there for you, Hashem orchestrates the world, you know that you can trust your Creator and you're able to make peace with yourself. And now I'd like to turn over the floor to Ushi. Ushi is going to moderate. Please feel free to ask questions on any topic. I prefer if we start on this topic. Hopefully, if you have questions about decisions or things like that, raise your hand and Ushi will call on you. And Ushi, I'm turning the floor over to you.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm not ready.
Okay,
so we have a few questions. Again, I want to tell everybody in the share, the point of the share, Rabbi Schaefer is very promoting, is being very dynamic, asking questions. We're trying to stay on topic over here about, control, parnasa type of stuff and how to deal with things. And obviously, if we have other questions, we could definitely get to it. But anybody who has a question, please raise your hand. It would be the best. If not, you could put on the Q&As or you could text me. We have a few questions that came in already. So I'm going to start with one that came in, and we'll continue with that. Mm-hmm. I'm not a materialistic person, so I never thought I would have an issue with jealousy until I realized that I'm actually quite resentful of people who are more learned than me or give more covet in my community for the amount of Torah they know. Is it okay to be jealous of other people's ruchnias, or is this a tool of the Yetzer Hara?
That's an excellent question. Okay, it's an excellent question because one of the things that we human beings have trouble making peace with is our life settings. Oh, Hashem, if only I had a brain. Why didn't you give me a good head? I could learn. I could be such a different human. Hashem, why? Hashem, why'd you make me more charismatic? Hashem, why'd you make me more popular? Hashem. Many, many times we find ourselves uncomfortable and ill at ease with our life setting. And recognizing the fact that Hashem created for each human being a perfect life setting. It fits me like a hand in glove, exactly suited to allow me to grow, to allow me to be challenged, to allow me to become the great person I can be. But my life setting and your life setting are very different. Different talent sets, different abilities, different levels of intelligence, and different circumstances, all of them handcrafted, perfectly suited to match the individual who's in that life. My life won't fit you, your life won't fit me, but each person was given a perfect life setting. So normally, one of the issues that we have trouble making peace with is our life setting. However, the question that you're asking here is not really a life setting. The one area that is in our dominion, is in our control, are decisions that I make. Decisions of, will I learn or not learn? Will I daven or not daven? Will I give tzedakah or will I not? How will I do it? Will I answer back? Will I not? Those decisions are largely in our domain. Chazal tell us, there is an area and a place to use jealousy, and that's within spiritual realms. If you use in spiritual areas, if you use jealousy, it won't destroy you. You have to use it right. My Rebbe Shmuz Live would often explain it's a tool to be used, meaning to say, I'm using this competition to make me bigger in learning, to allow me to serve Hashem better. I'm not really competing with him. I'm using the competition as a catalyst, as a system of growth. That is very healthy, very important. And my Rebbe Shmuz Live would often say, the only one who wants you learning Lishma is the Satan. I remember many times, I once came to the Shiva and I said, Rebbe, I'm not learning the Shema. I'm learning to be the best guy in a block sheet. I'm not learning Shema. Shiva said, good. No, the Shiva didn't say, I'm not learning the Shema. I don't feel I'm learning to, good. And he said these words, the only one who wants you learning Lishma is the Sultan. Why? Because if you learn Lishma, you're going to sleep till 12 o'clock. If you're competing and you're using that as a tool, you're going to get up early in the morning, work very hard, you're going to grow. You're using it as a tool to gain growth, to become closer to Hashem. And believe me, if covered was your thing, you'd be out there making money, you'd be out there in the business world. But you're here to grow, to accomplish, and you're using this as a vehicle. So the bottom line is, I would say, it's fine, it's kosher, I would use it. Just be careful that it doesn't become nasty, it doesn't become in a sort of in a negative sense. But as long as you're using it as a catalyst for growth, I think it's very healthy and good.
Okay, let's take a live question over here.
Yep.
Hi, you're on. How are you?
Hi, Shavir. Hi. So my question is, right now I'm not working. I'm looking for a job. I've been furloughed since the end of March. And how you were saying that, well, you really you can only decide what you want to do, and Hashem is in control anyway. You're going to get whatever money you're going to get. So since that's the case, should I even really care whether I have a job right now or not? I just, put in the effort. Hashem is in control. Like, ideally, should I just be happy with whatever Hashem wants and not?
So let me answer that question. Provided that you're really putting in the effort, the answer is yes. Looking for a job is a full-time job. So if you're really pursuing that and really working at it very, very diligently with a lot of energy, a lot of zeal, then the answer is yes. You're doing your part. Your part is to use the world in the ways of the world. To earn a living, you got to get a job. You knock on every door you can. You send out your resume to every place you can. You network, you speak to people. But if you're doing that and you're really engaging in using the world properly, then you sit back and say, Hashem, I'm doing my part. It's up to you. That is absolutely correct. But you have to be careful, because a lot of times what happens is, Hashem, it's your world. I'll sit back and bring the job to me. And that is a failure, because that is absolutely wrong, and that will lead to the opposite result. Hashem's not going to bail you out. So
right. So thank you. No, what I guess I wasn't so clear on is, okay, assuming I'm doing all the hishtadlut that I can do, so now should it even matter to me at this point whether I'm working or not? Like, ideally, should it even make any difference to me? Like, should I be happier or less happy if I'm working or not?
Okay, so if you were Avram Avinu, David HaMelech, I would say it should make no difference, because you'd be way above this world and not subject to the natural foils and foibles that we fall into. What I mean by that is, yes, ideally 100%. Ideally, I recognize, much like, by the way, the Chovos HaLevavos explains, you have an egg, somehow Hashem provides for that chick in the egg all of the nutrients that it needs. The baby in the mother's womb is provided with all of the nutrients that it needs. Hashem is quite capable, even way away from human eye, of providing all of the needs for any one of his creations. And Hashem, if it could be, feels an obligation to support each of his creations. Chovos HaLevavos explained to us, much like if I invite you to my house, you're my guest, so I take care of your needs. If it could be, Hashem feels an obligation to take care of his creations. I'm your creator. I welcome you into this world. It's my job to take care of you. Now, that understanding should bring a tremendous sense of equanimity, a tremendous sense of menuchas hanefesh. And ideally, that's what you should be feeling. Yes, job, no job. The bottom line is, we human beings rarely are there. Usually we're 20% there, 25% there. So, if you ask me in an ideal state, is that the ideal hashkafa? Absolutely. And practically, I kind of doubt that it's going to be real. And I'm more afraid of it stemming from complacency and not really putting in the effort. So I'd be very cautious in that area.
Thank you.
Sure.
Here, Rabbi Schaefer, a few people are texting the questions. It's actually three different texts, but I'm going to combine them because it's really all the same question. The general question is, it's from Daniel. He told me to tell you it's from Daniel. He doesn't have a microphone. Okay. If Hashem puts a thought in a person's head to do something wrong to me or whatever it is, does that mean the person will not be punished by Hashem? How can Hashem punish a person if Hashem is the one who put the thought in his head? That's A. And then the other people are asking, does this go into free will, which we don't really have no choice? People are not understanding that you're saying that Hashem is the one who told you to buy the stock. Hashem is the one who told you to do this, and then you're just following through with his ratzon. Is not taking away bechira.
Yeah. Okay, so you're not the first one to try this. So Daniel, I got to tell you, one came before you. A man called Paro tried that one. Paro said, Hashem, listen, obviously you wanted to enslave the Jewish nation. If you didn't, they wouldn't have succeeded. So what do you want from me? And Ramban explains that, yes, it's true. Hashem wanted that to happen, but who asked you to be the nudnik to pull the trigger on the gun? Who asked you to be the person? Meaning, Hashem has a certain plan for the world, and Hashem will bring about that plan. But if you're the one who is on the scene pulling the trigger on the gun, you are the murderer. Even though Hashem intended for that person to die, even though that person would have died had you done it or not done it, he would have been hit by a lightning bolt, hit by a car careening off the curb. He would have died. Nevertheless, Hashem will often allow a certain person to be in a certain place, and if you pull the trigger on the gun, you're the murderer. Meaning it's true. Hashem sometimes will put certain thoughts into people's heads that it's not necessarily a good idea for them to do. The Satan also speaks in your brain. It's not a good idea to listen to. You have free will to listen or not listen. So when I say, when I'm talking about winds that blow, I'm talking about Hashem creates a sort of like large picture, like everyone starts feeling a certain way. It's just hard to describe why it is, but there's a certain change in the air. Or Hashem puts a certain thought in your head. I think it's a good idea if you invest in real estate. It's a good idea for gold. I think you should put your money here. Those are thoughts. Now, obviously, you're a Baal Bechira. You have free will. You either listen or not. And by the way, just because you had a thought, don't go listening to it. You have a thought, now it's time to weigh it. It's time to think about it. It's time to really, the fact that you met this person and not that person, the fact that this financial manager told you this idea and you didn't speak to somebody else, that's Hashem orchestrating the world. And that's Hashem directing the situation. But at the end of the day, it has to be your decision. It has to be with your wisdom, your understanding. Hashem will influence and Hashem will put you there. And at the end of the day, you're the one who pulls the trigger. You're the one who does it or not. And therefore, you're responsible for the outcome.
Okay.
Is that clarity or confusion?
No, very clear.
Okay,
I heard the similar thing. They say, let's say, the time of the Hitler and everything, that there was an Ace Rotz, and he's the one who volunteered. It was his machshava, but he volunteered to do it.
Right. And therefore, he is punished as if he did it, even though it would have happened anyway. And if it weren't through this, it would have been through Corona. It would have been through some other Magefa or some other method or something. It would have been an earthquake, who knows what. The point is Hashem has many, many methods of delivering the results Hashem wants to. You chose to be the one to pull the trigger. You're responsible for that, even though the outcome would have happened anyway. Right.
My family struggles with Parnasa. I live in an affluent neighborhood. It's always in my face that we're different and we can't live to the same standards. Should we move to the other side of town where people live in a similar way to us? Or should I work on myself and my midas not to feel inferior over this?
Yeah, I have to be honest with you. Forget you. What about your kids? Forget you. Let's say you work on yourself and you'll be COVID, you get very nice. What about your kids? Your kids are brought up in an affluent neighborhood and either the other kids have and they don't have, or they also have, or even worse, they have more than everyone else. What it does to your children is it destroys them. And materialism is either the greatest bracha or the greatest klala. And the Chovos HaLevavos tells us that wealth is given to a person for one of three reasons. It's either a bracha, a test, or a klala. And you can tell how the person uses it will determine, it will show you right away what it was given for him for. If a person's granted great wealth and suddenly gets into the partying scene, and he gets into the fancy homes and the fancy cars, and he begins becoming involved in this world, you're looking at a man who's eating his world to come in this world. If you see a person who gets a lot of money and suddenly he's very focused on keeping his money, make sure he invests it well, you're watching a man who's being tested. If you watch a man who makes a tremendous amount of money and therefore then dedicates himself to the Klal Yisrael, dedicates himself to learning, dedicates himself to other things, he steps away from that, then you're looking at a bracha. We live in times of unprecedented wealth. And even though we're all kvetching how to pay my mortgage, how to pay my tuition, the opulence that we all live in is incredible. And it's a bracha, but it comes with a very huge price. If you're living in an affluent neighborhood, yes, it's dangerous for you, but it's much more damaging to your children. And I would recommend, if you can get out of there, run for the hills. Now, it's not always so easy because Baruch Hashem, Jews are successful, and wherever you go, we have affluence. It's an issue. It's a problem. But my answer is, for your kids' sakes alone. And by the way, if you make a fortune of money, do yourself a favor. Don't let anyone know it. You'll destroy your family. You'll destroy your kid. I'm the rich kid. My dad, you can buy and sell the school. My brother is a chinuch. He told me about a 7th grader. The vice principal said, could you please leave the office? The 7th grader turns to the vice principal and says, you're going to tell me to leave? My father pays for the school. Don't go telling me what to do. I said to myself, Hashem Yirachem, a 7th grader to open a mouth like that? And the father, I hate to say it, ruined him. Why? And because when you let your kids know that you are Rockefeller, you are Rothschild, it's a very, very expensive price. And if you could handle it, it doesn't mean your kids can. So my answer is yes. If you can escape, run away.
Hey, Rabbi Schaefer. Anybody who wants to ask a question, please raise your hand on the thing or text it in the chat or put it in the Q&As. That's an interesting question. It's actually intriguing. It's a little bit of a story.
Okay.
I am about Tshuva, and when I was becoming religious, I thought that the frum family life was beautiful. Now that we have a house full of little kids and no clue how to pay tuition, I sometimes wonder why I choose to have such a big family. We don't have any family support, no help financially, emotionally, or otherwise. My parents think we're nuts. I thought we were doing the right thing, but now I regret it and wonder why I made life so difficult for myself and my wife. Was I wrong to try to build a big, beautiful Yiddish family?
Okay, so welcome to the Nisayan. When you're in the test, it's so difficult, it's so hard. And when you're out of it, you look back and say, what was my problem? What was I thinking? This happens time after time after. Let me give you a classic example. A fella comes over to me at a chasna, Rabbi, I can't have kids. Now, I remember I wasn't at his wedding, and I couldn't quite place how long he'd been married. So after a moment or two of him going on about he can't have kids, I said to him, just remind me, how long are you married now? 9 months. I said, oh, okay. I said, listen, I'm not a Novi, but I promise you, you're going to have a child, Mitzvah Hashem, not long from now. And when you do, I guarantee you're not going to be able to remember the pain that you had now. And more than that, you're not even going to be able to understand it. Okay. About a year after that event, I'm driving somewhere and this fellow flags me down. Rabbi, stop. I'm going to the bris of my son. Okay, this sounds like it was staged. It wasn't. Okay. I said to, okay, good, stop. Tell me now. Do you remember we were at that wedding? Remember you were very upset? Could you relate to that pain now? No. Could you understand now why you felt that pain? No. And that's the secret to every Nisayan. When you're in it, it's so big. It's so hard. Until you get out of it, then you look back and you say, what was my problem? What was my issue? So long and short of it is, yes, it is a very difficult situation. Paying tuition is a major, major problem. Unless you're phenomenally wealthy, it is a major strain and a struggle. Somehow we manage. Somehow things work out. I had a friend of mine who was he was involved in the board of a major institution, 1,800 families, 1,800 kids in this yeshiva. And at the time I asked him what was the tuition rate. Tuition was astonishingly high. And I asked him, what does it cost to live in this area? And he said a number that was frightening. And I asked him, how many people make that much money? He said about half. And I said, so how many foreclosures do you have? None. Somehow it is that Hashem works it out. Somehow you pay the tuition, you pay the mortgage, things work out. And when your children grow up and you see the nachas and you see who they became and you see what you built in this world, you look back and say, what? I had a question about it. So the answer is hang in there. Hashem will help. It'll work out.
Okay, let's keep going. Again, anybody has a question, please raise your hand. A lot of questions are coming in. This is an interesting question. These are all similar, but they're all different. So I'm actually
raise your hand. Anybody shy? If you're shy, don't raise your hand. But if you're brave enough, you can raise your hand and ask. Please.
That's 100%. I come from a family of prominent Rabbanim. All my brothers went to Rabbanis and all are Rabbanim, and my sister's married to Talmidei Chachamim. I was always a dark sheep of the family. I had a hard time learning as a kid, and now I work full-time in a hardware store. Even though my parents never made an issue of it, I still wonder why Hashem had to make me different from the rest of my family. Wouldn't I have been able to be a better Eved Hashem if I had a head for learning? My whole life could have been so much easier and happier.
Yep, 100%. Hashem blew it. Hashem messed up. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Meaning, if I recognize that Hashem is at least as smart as me and probably a whole lot smarter, and Hashem handcrafted, custom built the ideal life setting for me, this level of intelligence, this type of personality, this temperament, these inclinations, born into this family, in this birth order, in this generation, I understand that Hashem orchestrates an ideal state setting for me, again, including my ability to learn or not learn. And that's what I need to be the opportunity for me to grow, for me to accomplish, for me to become the great person I could be. But you see, I have to recognize that Hashem orchestrates this world, and I have to make peace with my life setting. Making peace with my life setting is recognizing that I didn't create this world, and I didn't choose my body. I didn't choose my level of intelligence. I didn't get to choose much at all. Hashem put me into this body. Hashem put me into the world and said, go, use your strengths, use your talents, become what you can be. And that's what I'm supposed to be. But at the end of the day, when we leave this earth, I'm not asked to be you. You're not asked to be him. None of us are compared to Moshe Rabbeinu, with Avram Avinu. We're compared to the scale of measure of you. How much of you did you become? How much of your potential did you reach? And making peace with your life setting, making peace with the exact situation that Hashem put you in is based on one simple understanding. There's no objective standard. It's not like if you learn 500 blot, you get into Gan Eden, and if you learn one blot, you don't get anywhere. There's no such objective standard. Everything is subjective based on your strength, your talents. The question they ask you is, how much of you did you become? 80%, 60%, 40%. They don't ask you how much of the other fellow you became, and they don't ask you how you size up compared to 6 other people. Based on your talent, your strength, your ability, how much did you accomplish? How much of you did you become? When you recognize that it's not an objective standard, but completely subjective, you're able to make peace with your life setting. You recognize that Hashem knows better than I what I need. Hashem loves me more than I love me. And Hashem put me into the ideal state setting to allow me to grow, to accomplish, to become the great person I could be. You know what I'm saying?
Loud and clear.
Okay.
There's a lot of life setting questions, but they're different scenarios. So let's go through them if we could. There's somebody just texting a question. It's an excellent question. I have thoughts that are conflicting, and it's hard to know which one to listen to. I work in a school, and I don't know what my job will be, part-time or full-time. On one hand, I tell myself Hashem runs the world, and to look for work just in case the work job doesn't come through. At the same time, I feel anxious and not knowing what will be. I've been looking for jobs as plan B. I'm not sure where to put my focus. Amuna or Shtadlis in looking for a new job? Should she put the koiches into the Amuna that Hashem will take care of it, or focus 24/7 in a job?
Okay. So let me say this. Like all questions in life, I highly recommend you ask somebody, hopefully a Rav, Das Torah, ask somebody your Shaila. And I'll tell you why. It's very, very difficult to tease out what is the right hishtadlus in that situation, based on how likely, based on your circumstances, based on how likely you are to get another job. It's a very complex issue. And what I'm saying is, anytime you have the opportunity to ask, my Rebbe Shivas, that's all you say, ask, ask, ask. Ask people older than you, ask people younger than you. You see, I may not be smarter than you, but I have one advantage over you. I'm not you. You are blinded, you're in your own world, you're caught up in everything. I don't have that disadvantage. And I could be of equal intelligence or even less intelligent, but I could give you advice that might be better than you can see, because I can see you and you can't see you. So the first answer is Shol Eitza, ask advice, ask advice. Now, at a certain point, that's ultimately what the question is going to be. What is the right hishtadlus in this situation? Hashem wants us to use the world in the ways of the world. And that means I have to be very proactive. I have to pretend as if Hashem doesn't run the world, but Hashem does. That's a tightrope mushal, if you remember from the Bitachon workshop. When I'm up on the tightrope, I have to imagine there's no safety net. If I slip, I die. And all the while I have to know there is a safety net. Hashem is there. So when I'm using this world, I have to be very active, very engaged. And anyone from the outside looks at me and says, he is doing it. And it sure does look like it. But I know that I'm going through choreographed fight scenes. I'm just going through the motions. Hashem determines the outcome. Bottom line is, finding that balance between Ishtadlis and Bitochen is very difficult. And I highly recommend that you ask someone directly based on your circumstances.
Rabbi Shefer, let's go to Avrami. There's no share, without Avrami.
Yeah.
Avrami.
That's a nice compliment. Thank you. I was wondering about, it's funny, after I raised my hand, Rebbe started talking about this. Hashem, when I have a big decision to make and I leave it up to Hashem, so obviously I had my shtadlus that I had to do to come up with why should I choose this side or the other side? So what's the balance between that and being Hoshea in my Ashtadlis? Like I could seek Eitzah and do this, but let's say I forgot to seek Eitzah or I didn't know. When is a person Hoshea if they don't know about it? Like if they don't know to, like someone might look at the situation and say, well, clearly you should have done this. And, oh, I didn't know to do that. So what's the line over there? What's the balance? How do you balance that out?
I can't answer that question. See, this concept, again, finding the balance is one of the most difficult things we human beings are charged with. The bigger problem becomes what's really going on inside of me. Am I really bluffing or am I real? Meaning to say, many times people say, I have a lot of bitachon, and what they really mean is they're lazy as sin. And a lot of times people say, I'm doing my real hishtadlus, and what they mean is I run the world, and if I don't do this, it ain't going to happen. And being able to sort out exactly what's real and what's not is not so simple. The rule of thumb is it's very, very hard to know yourself. And again, I have to come back to that idea. You need to ask other people. You need to ask, hopefully, a das Torah. You need to ask a Rav, a Rebbe, certainly, ideally, someone older, wiser, because it's very difficult within your own world to sort things out. And ultimately, that's what's going to determine a lot of these questions. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I'm hoping I spoke long enough that you forgot it and everyone else forgot it, so we're good. Just move on, right?
Yeah, I think I heard from Rabbeim, and I think secondhand from Rosh Shiva Zatzal that a good eitzah is like to push your buttons and to try and, like, what does it mean to push your buttons? To, ask yourself these questions and see if, like, why you're doing it. I guess a lot of it is knowing yourself.
Right. And my Rebbe Zatzal used to always say, if you want to know what the right thing to do is, and many times you're going to have to call a shot. And many times you're going to have to call a shot, and you want to know what the right thing is, you say to yourself, what do I think is the right thing? Forget my agenda, forget what the result. But if I do it, no, forget that. What do I think is right? And if you ask that question exactly that way, you'll know what's right. Why? Because within me is a chelik kimimal. There's an neshama that came from under Hashem's kisei kavod. There's a part of me that's pure wisdom and understands exactly what I should do every moment. I have a GPS perfectly programmed within me. The problem is I have a lot of other contentious thoughts, desires, and other things going on. There's a lot of static. If I could stop the static and listen to the GPS inside me, listen to my neshama, every time I'll know the answer. And therefore, many times the correct answer is to ask yourself, what do I think is the right thing to do? And when you ask yourself that question, often you find the answer immediately.
Got it. Okay, Shkach. I have something.
Thank you, Avrami.
Follow-up.
Somewhat relevant.
Avrami, we have a 2-question limit, Avrami. 20 questions ahead. One more, but that's it.
I'll make it quick. Also, sort of a balanced question, but this is a little different. Let's say a person has like a particular weakness in a certain area, maybe kas, maybe taiva, whatever it is. So for them, it's easier to be nichshel in that avera or whatever it is. Maybe they lose their temper. So when that happens, a lot of times the person's first thought is like, how could I do this? How could, like, most people don't mess up like this. Like I'm not coming up to the plate. Like the Torah says it should be like this. Yeah. And I'm not doing that. And everyone else is fine with it. So right. Like that sounds like the Yitzhara, but on the other hand, then you could say also, like, look, this is my Nisayon. So like I can't be so hard on myself. I have to understand this is my thing. And so, like, how do you get in the middle?
Right. Okay.
Make sure you're not.
I'm going to give you part to this. You see, a lot of times what people do is they destroy themselves. I'm such a loser. I lost my temper again. I'm such an arrogant guy. What's my problem? And they are not at peace with themselves because of this issue. And if you want to know the balance and you want to find peace within yourself, you have to do one thing. You have to step out of yourself and ask yourself, did I make me? Did I create me? And the answer is no. Hashem gave each person different life settings, and Hashem gave a different temperament, a different balance of personalities to each person. Some people are very level-headed. Some people are very hot-tempered. Some people are very noted to arrogance. Or some guys are big, bombastic. Some guys have horrible self-esteem. I did not make me. My job is to work on me. So imagine I have a temper. I have to recognize I didn't make the temper. So it's not going to destroy me when I recognize that I lost my temper, but now I'm free to actually work on my temper. You see, what happens is normally a guy loses his temper. He says, I'm going to lose. I did it again. And he gets so depressed that he can't grow. You have to step outside yourself and say, I didn't make me. I didn't give myself this assignment, but this is my assignment. Let's go. My obligation is to work on it to grow. I'm not going to be compared to you. You may never lose your temper, and I may be greater than you. By the way, I'll share with you an interesting story. I know a fellow, I know him very well. If you would meet him today, you'd say he's okay. He's not particularly arrogant, not particularly humble, just an average guy. And I'm jealous of his Gan Eden, and I'll tell you why. Because I knew him when he was in his 20s. And in his 20s, he was a bombastic fool. He was like the biggest bald guy. I'm sorry. And he worked on himself for 20 years. And after 20 years, he got to the point where he's a normal guy. And you'll say, big deal, normal guy. I'll tell you what the big deal is. He changed, he grew. And that growth is the most difficult growth. It's one of the greatest assets you'll have for the world to come. But this ability to recognize, I didn't make my nature. I didn't choose my temper, my jealousy, my arrogance, my laziness. But my job is to work on it. I'm not going to be asked to be you. I'm not going to be compared to you. But I didn't make it. I'm not responsible for it, but I am responsible to work on it. I think that's the balance. And when you have that balance, you're at peace with yourself. You're able to actually master yourself as much as you can, and you're able to accomplish what you put on the planet to do.
Rabbi Shaver, I have quite a bit of questions over here. I think let's see if we can knock them out. I have about 6 questions. Yeah, I think you have enough time.
Ooh,
Here we go. Here we go.
Roll them all into one.
I'm going to roll them all into one, but they're all different. I find that my midas go out the window when my physical needs are not being met, but my situation right now as a caregiver means that I'm always running on empty. How can I improve myself and also maintain my self-esteem?
Okay, I'm going to assume that's a woman who's asking that question. And if it is, then I'll say the following. Self-care is one of the most important things you can do as a mother. Self-care means you have to have enough time for yourself, have enough time to exercise, enough time to take care of your needs, because if you're frazzled, you're not going to be a good mother. And Jewish mothers especially are notorious for this. They give and they give and they give, and they give so much that they end up being so burnt out and have so little energy, so little patience, that they no longer are anywhere near as effective as they should be. Self-care means moderating. Self-care means recognizing I have strengths and weaknesses. I am but flesh and blood. I need some time. I need time to exercise. I need time to relax. I need time to do things. And you have to carve out that time. You have to create very rigid, very real boundaries. And this is mommy's time. For the treadmill, this is mommy's time. For the gym, whatever it may be. And you carve out those times, and those times are Kodesh Kadoshim. When you do that, what you find is you have much more energy, much more patience for the kids, and much more of whatever it is you need to do. Because you see, if physically you're not fit, it's very hard to do anything. I am a religious Jew. I work out religiously. I don't want to tell you, but at this stage in the game, it's 5-6 times a week. For many years, it's only 3 times a week, but I'm getting older, and I'm in a situation right after Corona, especially, I needed to get back into being alive. And it is incredible. I've worked out much of my life. As a kid, I was very active in martial arts. And there were only a few years during my yeshiva years when I didn't work out. And during those years, I can tell you I was nowhere near as productive. As a result, I took it on again. I kept working out throughout my yeshiva years, the kola years, because I just have more energy, more strength, more vigor. I accomplished way more. That's intelligence. That's being wise to my strengths, my weaknesses, recognizing who I am and recognizing what I need. Mothers especially, I say this, you have to be very, very careful about self-care. You have to make sure that you make enough time. There's only so many hours in a day. You can't stay up forever, and you can't take care of everything. You have to cut back, say what you can do it with energy, with zeal, and make sure that you have enough time to take care of your own needs.
Anybody who's on the show right now, we're only taking live questions because I have so many pre-made questions. And here's the next live question, Rabbi Shafer. You ready?
Ready.
Hi, Chaya. How are you? Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi.
Okay. So my husband just told me that he is uninspired with Judaism. He became frum about 30 years ago before we met. And, he hasn't gone back to davening with a minyan since coronavirus, even though, shuls are open in our area. But he said he's uninspired. He doesn't feel like it. He doesn't learn with any of his chavrusas anymore. And he's, he said he's just kind of uninspired because our sons are no longer from. Our daughter is, but I think it just really bothers him that our sons just basically one of our sons completely gave up everything and left the house. And one lives with us, but I don't know. He's not really from. So what is my job as his wife? Am I supposed to encourage him to learn more, to daven? Am I supposed to just let him be and accept him as he is? Am I supposed to just daven for him?
Okay, that's an excellent question and a very important question. So let me start with what you should not do. You should not become his rebbe, his mashgiach, his mentor, his police lady. You should not become his boss. You should not tell him what to do, command him what to do, force him into do it, cajole him into it, talk him into it, figure out how to get him to do it. Don't do that. Why shouldn't you? Number one, it's not your job. Number two, it wrecks your marriage. Number three, it causes the exact opposite result of what you're looking for. You see, it never works. It never, ever works. What happens is invariably, you push your husband and suddenly he turns into a different person. Not only is he not receptive, he's angry with you, your shalom bias falls apart, and he doesn't budge at all. And you have to recognize one simple reality. You are responsible for you, and your husband is responsible for him. Now, as a spouse, you want to do whatever you can. What that means is you want to offer him every opportunity. If he wants time to learn, he wants time to daven, you want to be there to encourage him, and you want to certainly support him. And certainly davening for him is the best thing you can do. That one for sure is good. But just make sure that you recognize that he is responsible for him and you are responsible for you. You are not going to go to Gehenna if he doesn't learn daven or whatever. You will go potentially maybe to Gehenna if you're going to ruin your shalom bayis by becoming the police lady, mentor, rebbe, and ruin your family. So I'm not saying you were anyway, but many women unfortunately make that mistake. So bottom line is you can't do much. You have to, I'm sure your husband knows, and I have a feeling it's a temporary thing and things are, it's very unsettling. This whole Corona time period is very, very unsettling because life, you may call it the new normal, but it's not normal. And when people are put into strange conditions, it takes a while to acclimate, and it's a lot of times people lose their footing. So I would say, sit back, let's see what happens, give them a little space, give them a little time, and more than anything, don't make a mistake about what your role is and what your job is. Your job is to be a spouse. Your job is to be a best friend. Your job is to be there for him. Your job is not to be in charge, the police lady, or anything like that. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. A lot more questions here. Let's try to put a speed on. Just let me know when you want to cut it because I have about 6 more here.
Okay.
Is the purpose of life to change? Why is change so difficult? Is it actually possible? It seems like most people don't change at all. Okay.
Are you able to hear me now? I just realized my microphone was off the whole time.
No, we heard you the whole time.
I had this fancy mic and it was off. Do you hear me better now? No, it's the same thing.
Maybe I just understand you telepathically. I don't know, but I think I heard you the whole time.
All right. Anyway, I just realized my mic's off. Okay. Anyway, so I wasn't even paying attention to the question. I'm sorry, Oshie. I'm not allowed to.
I'll say it again. It's a question built on a question. Is the purpose of life to change your midas, to change yourself? Why is change so difficult? Is it actually possible? It seems like most people don't really change at all.
Okay, excellent question. Excellent question. So the Gra that is often quoted, and it's a very important Gra, says, "The imlav tikana midos lama lo chayim." If you're not fixing your midos, if you're not improving your midos, what do you have life for? That is the purpose of life: to grow, to accomplish, to change the essence of you. Now, and that being said, I'll share with you a little personal reality. I have been learning Musar now for about 39 years. And there's certain midos and certain areas that I work on and I work on and I work on and I work on. And about 2 or 3 years ago, I said to myself, this is crazy. I spent decades and I haven't gotten anywhere. Now, if I were a sane person at that point, maybe I would have jumped off the roof. But maybe I'm not that sane, but Hashem is very kindly. And Hashem somehow arranged it that I start learning a part of Derech Hashem that deals with exactly that point. And he says something so eye-opening. He says you have to recognize, after Adam Arishon ate from the Eitz Hadas, he changed the world. no longer is it possible for a human being to shape himself. See, Adam Rishon was created very differently than we are. He was malleable. He was plastic. If he decided anger isn't good, he could change his anger. Arrogance is not good. He was at will. His neshama was so powerful that he could master his nefesh bahami at will. We don't have that privilege. When Adam Rishon ate from the Eitz Hadas, he changed the physical world, and now we are totally enveloped, and change is very difficult. But the Derech Hashem explains something that does happen. When I grow and when I change, when I try to change, even though I don't change, but that sort of makes an imprint, and that imprint registers, and it's almost like there's a shadow of me that grows when I do that. So imagine I'm working on anger. I try to get, I work on it, I gain a little bit. I learn most about it, I work, I grow a little bit. Now I'm still losing my temper, and I'm still saying things, but I'm really working. What happens is that shadow grows and grows and bigger, and it becomes huge. Now in this world, I'll remain who I am, and I'll have my fierce temper, and I'll still lose it. And when my body's put in the ground, I go to the Olam and the Shamos, and whoosh, I fill in that shadow, man. Suddenly I grow into whatever size I became. See, I became that in this world, but I was held back by my body. So Hashem allows that to become like in the potential, in that figure, in that sort of shadow man, and you become that big. Right now you're being held back by your body. And once your body's put in the ground, it no longer holds you back, and whoosh, you fill out that full size. So if you spend 30 years working on anger and you feel you haven't gotten very far at all, you might be right. But the work that you did registers and makes an imprint, and that shadow of you is going to be greater and greater. And in the world to come, you may be a towering giant because of the work that you did. So don't give up hope. Don't jump off the roof, and keep plugging away.
A follow-up question to it is now, if it's my job to try to change the midas of our children.
It is your job to try to change you. Good luck. Good luck. Try to change you. Try to change you. Anybody who's serious about this thing called change will find that it ain't so easy at all. And if you can't change you, what are the odds of you changing another person? You see, it's very easy to say, I'm going to change him, I'm going to change her, I'm going to change you. Why don't you change? You should grow, you should change. It's very easy to say those words. I say, first change yourself. Let's see you make some serious progress. Take an area that's your weakness, take an area and really make significant changes. And when you've made those significant changes, then we could talk about other people. You see, it's very easy to pontificate. I sit on my throne and say, you should do that, he should do that, you should be. It's very, very easy to do that. But that's also very, very false. Why? Because what I'm really saying is, it should be, you should be, I can't do it, but I think you should do it. Bottom line is, it's very hard to change yourself, and don't even think about changing your kids, because all you're going to do is damage them. Your job as a parent is to bring out the best in your child. Your job as a parent is to see the diamond inside, cultivate it, allow it to come to fruition. Do whatever you can to create the environment, to create the circumstances. If you can find people, good friends, good rebbeim, people, circumstances that will allow your child to flourish, do whatever you can. But your job isn't to change your child. Your child is not Play-Doh. Your child is a diamond, a gem. Your job is to bring out the best of your child by creating the best environment, the best influences to allow your child to flourish. All right. Good.
How many more, Rebbe Schaefer? How many more can you handle?
I'm running out of steam.
You're running out of steam?
Running out of voice.
Let's do one last one, okay? I'll figure which one is the best there. Let's go with this one. When I see other people giving amazing drushes, like you, Rebbe Schaefer, or being involved in chesed projects in the community, it causes me a lot of pain. I was never asked to do these things. When I offer to help, it's often turned down. My wife respects me for who I am and says I shouldn't try to be like other people, but I feel like a nobody. Can I get past this?
Welcome to the human race. Yep. Welcome to the human race. It's a reality of you see, we all do it. We know we shouldn't, but we all do it. We compare ourselves to everyone else. Look at him, look at that one, look at that one. Again, the standard of measure is not compared to you. The standard of measure is compared to me. Absolutely subject. Now, it's difficult. The reason why it's difficult is when someone gets honor, and especially if it's in Ruchnius, and especially it looks like it's, he's learning and he's growing, and it looks so, and it is true. But do you know what percentage of his potential he's reaching? By the way, the guy may be a Bucky in Shas, and he may be at 40% of his potential, and you might be at 60. So while it looks very flowery and it looks wonderful, it looks great, it's irrelevant. There's only one thing that's relevant. How much strength did you have? How much talent were you given? How much of you did you become? So listen, again, we all fall prey to it. It's a natural trapping to compare ourselves to others. But again, making peace. You see, I think this Onkelos is an eye-opening concept. What Onkelos is sharing with us is that Hashem controls everything in this world, including my thoughts. Meaning to say, who gave you that thought? Who directed you? That's Hashem. Who directs the global zeitgeist? The fact that right now Antifa is the wave of the current times, the insanity of anarchism. That's Hashem. Why Hashem's doing it, we may not know, but Hashem puts thoughts into people's minds. And Hashem creates life settings for different people. Recognizing that Hashem is involved in everything externally, everything internally is ultimately one of the base bastions of our Emunah system. But making peace with myself, making peace with my life circumstances, and making peace with myself, and making peace with the decisions that I make is one of the keys to growing. And one of the ways to realize that, again, is to recognize that I don't have to make the right decision. I don't have to make the best decision. I'm not asked to be you. I'm asked to be me. When I understand that Hashem created for me the perfect environment and gave me a body. I didn't choose his anger. I didn't choose arrogance. I didn't choose laziness. And I'm not responsible for it. But I am responsible to work on it. And when you put that all together, you begin to realize, I'm here to grow. I'm here to accomplish, not to be compared to you, compared to me. I was given all the tools I need to become the great person I could be. Hashem helps you have to daven, and Hashem leads you in the right way. All right, let's stop here. I want to thank everyone for joining. I hope you join us next week. Again, I want to mention, if you want to join the WhatsApp group, there's a Shmuz Chizuk WhatsApp group. We send out about 4 times a week, 3 4-minute videos, very inspirational, motivational videos. If you'd like to join the Shmuz Chizuk WhatsApp group, just send please subscribe to the following number, 845-216-9330. Again, that's 845-216-9330. Also, if you'd like a copy of the new Shmuz book, 2 Worlds, 1 Chance, if you go to book.theshmuz.com, you can get a copy of the free. I only ask that you participate in the shipping. Please avail yourself of it. Again, it's book.theshmuz.com, and the WhatsApp number is 845-216-9330. Thank you for joining. Hopefully, we'll see you next week.